So there's been an old school conversation that has made its way back to the forefront. And the conversation goes as follows. How is it fair that black people have to let go of slavery as well as Jim Crow, whereas the Jews don't have to let go of the Holocaust? How is it fair? And on the surface, this seems like an honest conversation. It seems like a valid point, right? Surely if we have to let go of our own past trauma, then another group of people need to let go of their own past trauma, right? If you're going to continue to point blame at us for being victims, then why don't you do it for everybody else? And again, on the surface, this actually makes a little bit of sense. Like if you don't think about it any deeper, if you don't get into the facts, if you don't get into the context, nothing else is just that point, you would think to yourself, yeah, seems fair. Everybody should let go of their history and their past as far as, what sort of traumas that their ancestors went through. Now, here's the thing is once you start to introduce the facts, once you start to introduce context, changes this entire situation up a little bit. So, for example, on the part of the Holocaust, this was a intentional genocide on the basis of these people's ethnicity, right? Just like with the Hutus and the Tutsis over there in Rwanda, it was based upon that ethnicity or that tribe, that group of people that were looking to be exterminated on the basis of who they were and nothing else. It was not just simply war. It was not protection or self-defense. It was not we wanted your land or even economic gain. Instead, it was we want to eliminate you because we believe that you're the problem, you are inferior, etc. Now, contrary to most mainstream belief, is slavery was not based off, at least not American slavery, was not based off of race and ethnicity. It was based off of, unfortunately, economics. Now, all slavery is wrong, all of it, in all of human history. When the Ottoman Empire was doing it, when the Persians were doing it, when the Africans, when the Europeans, the Greeks, the Rome, it was all indentured servitude, slavery. It was wrong. Obviously, slavery more so than indentured servitude, right? Or creating servants out of people. But nevertheless, when we look at slavery as a whole, it is inhumane. However, it was still on the basis of economics. Now, that's just one of the parallels and one of the facts. But what I want to get into is, I think, a much more important conversation, which is, majoritively speaking, when you speak to most Black Americans about slavery and Jim Crow, it is not only that it is a history that is revisited, but instead it is a history that is used and weaponized. Let me explain. Most Black Americans have been conditioned to believe that the reason why they will fail, likely, the reason why they will not be able to mobilize or move themselves from the place that they currently are, is because of that history. The reason why I'm not successful is because of what happened then. Whereas if you ask most Jewish folks the same question is, how did this history stop you from succeeding? You're more likely than not to get an opposite answer. And I know that personally because I've had the conversations on both sides. As a matter of fact, I see the conversations on a daily basis. I see the arguments. I see when Black Americans, not all, but most, because most have been conditioned again into this belief. The reason why I am not successful, the reason why I'm failing, the reason why I don't own land, the reason why, I have not moved forward in my life is because of my history or my ancestors' personal history. Because this wasn't something that most people today went through. Unlike the Holocaust, where you still have folks who are alive from that time, folks who were children and their entire families were slaughtered. If you've never read it, get your hands on a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And let's just say it will give you a little more than just inspiration. It will give you true context as far as the atrocities that took place. Now, again, there's some who are deniers. There's some who will believe I'm Mossad and I'm paid off by the Israeli government just because I'm talking about this. But these are just the facts. And again, this is a conversation. These are two groups of people who are being brought up. So we're going to get into it. Black folks in America have been programmed to believe that this Your history is what is keeping you back. And that to me is detrimental. It is dangerous, in fact. Whereas on the other side, Jewish children are being raised to say, never forget. However, we're going to move forward bigger, faster, stronger. Never again. Never again. It's not a never again as far as woe is me. You know, what can we do with that? I mean, most people believe that this small group of people, only 15 million people on the entire planet, they believe that this small group of people controls everybody else. So if that's the truth, then damn. They sure enough did see themselves as victims because they control your life, right? They control your bank account. So damn. Meanwhile, on the other side, it's we control nothing. We own nothing. We have nothing. And again, to me, that's the most unfortunate and the most unfortunate reason, as well as the reason why I do what I do. You know, some people think I'm just pointing blame and I'm trying to appease the white man or whatever sort of nonsense. But the reality is the victim mentality is the most dangerous thing on this planet. That's what leads people to become bitter, resentful, vengeful, spiteful. Instead of taking personal accountability, they go out and attack somebody else. If it wasn't for my spouse, if it wasn't for my parents, if it wasn't for my boss, if it wasn't for the government, if it wasn't for this, and that, my life would be different. You become jaded. You become jaded. You become bitter. You look at everybody else as, or anybody who is succeeding, having the things that you desire as an enemy. Oh, well, they cheated. They did this. But what about you? What are you? You're a perfect human being, right? And so again, it's an easy scapegoat. So on one side, you have the victim mentality that says, I can't do these things. And then on the other side is justification for your bad behavior. Whereas in this community of people at large, en masse, they're not going to get away with that. If you're showing up in a way that's going to degrade the rest of the community, it's going to be called out. Just like black folks in the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, etc., right? It truly was the village that was raising a child. You are not just about to be somebody who's robbing folks and you get away with it. You'll be shunned. You'll be publicly shamed. And that activity or that behavior would be checked. Now, it's not only endorsed and promoted, but it's enabled by the very same people who say, well, you know, slavery. Jim Crow. You know, the reason why disproportionately we're committing these crimes is because of slavery. You see, it's like you can have two individuals who go through the very same traumatic situations, and one chooses to allow it to essentially propel them into a greater future, and the other can choose for it to basically spiral out into, a destructive sort of lifestyle. Possibly their own demise. I mean, there's a popular story of two twin brothers grew up in a house with an alcoholic father. One became a lawyer, one became an alcoholic. They were both asked on separate occasions. The lawyer brother, why did you become a lawyer? Why did you become successful? Blah, blah, blah. Why you never drink? And he said, because my father was an alcoholic and I knew I couldn't go down that path. And I saw what that leads to. Then they asked the other brother, why did you become an alcoholic? Because my dad was an alcoholic. And that's all I saw. We have choices. Not easy. And I'm not saying, again, you chose that traumatic experience, but we choose how we respond and react to it. But when you have such a grand excuse for yourself, it's my history. It's like, people talk about, oh, my past lives. Your past lives. Really? That's why you're a damn jackass, a nuisance. That's why you're a menace to society. Because of your past lives. Not because of the decisions that you're making right now. And this is a message for all of us. We need to let go of this damn perpetual victim mentality, self-perpetuated victim mentality. I'm not saying that people aren't victimized. What I'm saying is whether or not you're going to carry that forward as the reason why you continue to act out, why you continue to act against your own best interest, why you continue to sabotage self as well as others. So that's why the conversation is not, quote unquote, equally yoked. Again, amongst a multitude of other actual factual points about the slavery as well as the Holocaust, we have this point, which I believe is the main point. On one side, it's used as an excuse for bad behavior. It's used as an excuse to essentially keep yourself perpetually stuck and to blame everybody else for it, which is another point I could have harped on for another hour and a half. But when you blame the white man, blame this one, blame that one, and you continue to attack those people due to your own belief that they're the reason why you are where you are, yeah, of course everybody's going to want you to stop. Of course everybody's going to say, you know what, we're tired of it. We're tired. What do you want us to do? We weren't there. We didn't do it. So, do I believe that black folks in America need to let go of slavery? I believe you can remember your history. I believe you can know your history, hopefully to know it in its true context as opposed to the propagandized version of it, and to use it as a reason for why you propel and why you succeed. In the same way, the earliest black folks who came out of slavery, earliest black folks who came out of colonial, regimes, etc., the same way that many of them used it to propel them, like my father did out of a colony and growing up in apartheid and, finally being an adult outside of apartheid and using that as a reason to build something. If you use it as a reason to build, remember your history. Know where you came from. Don't use it as a weapon and people won't have an issue with it. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 3, 6, 5, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising.